Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. Again, my name is Jeffrey Davis. I'm the host of Radio Entrepreneurs, and I'm going to get right into this segment because I have two of my favorite people right in front of you right now. First of all, my co-host is the one and only Marc Z. Marc Swetskenbaum, president of Marc Z Legal Staffing. He's my co-host for this segment. Welcome back, Marc.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be here, and really honored to be included.
And I say this out of my own feelings and professional experience. You know, probably when it comes to estate planning, family conflict, the person I may respect the most in all of New England is Lisa Cukier, someone I've known for many years, partner now at Rubin and Rudman. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's great to be back here. Thanks.
That's great. Lisa, a big move for you. I think you shocked all of us who knew you and was following the legal community. Tell us a little bit about where you're at and where things are right now.
Good, thank you. Yeah, so I was at Burns & Levinson for 22 years. I love that firm. It's a wonderful firm. I moved over to Rubin and Rudman on June 1st. Also, a wonderful firm. I love this firm as well, and I'm practicing in the same exact areas of law. So it's typically high asset divorce, fiduciary service, where I serve as trustee, I serve as conservator. I help families who are under stress because perhaps the matriarch or patriarch of a business is experiencing a dementia or a diminishing capacity or a Alzheimer's disease, something like that. And I will help families through those challenges. I also help families through family litigation and vying for control. And I handle some estate planning and business litigation as well. I'm delighted to be doing what I've always done, and now at Rubin and Rudman.
So I'll personalize what I see for what I'm seeing. You know, in my practice, organizational development change, maybe it runs a little bit parallel to you at times, even some of the conflict, trying to keep my clients out of conflict. A lot of the baby boomers, they have been control people their whole lives. They've learned how to be successful and competent by always being in control. And now they're in a state of not knowing what to do with change. They want to continue to stay in control, but they know they can't work as hard. They may want to transfer some assets, but not all their assets. The tax structure is changing. Kids are getting married. Kids are getting divorced. It just seems that everything is in play right now more than ever.
It is. Things are in play right now. People are doing a lot of planning. They're looking at their estate plans. They're looking at the scheme that they have for the transmission of wealth through the generations. They're looking at their business interests and their trust interests. And the law keeps changing, especially with respect to the extent to which trusts might be vulnerable. People talk about asset protection, but a lot of that is being whittled away year by year with court decisions that seem to make a new exception to the rule so that it becomes a patchwork of a cascade of legal decisions. And it's challenging for people these days.
Marc?
Yeah, so what I wanted to say, Lisa, when we're talking about like what Jeff is talking about, like, for example, with family businesses, and then in terms of assets, in terms of changes, what are you seeing in terms of when you have a family business and a spouse is looking to separate or divorce from another spouse, and they've been in it from the start? In fact, they help start that family business.
Right. It's a very challenging issue. So, you know, in Massachusetts, every state is different, but Massachusetts is what's called an equitable division state, meaning that everything you come into your marriage with, including pre-existing business interests, your own business that you come into a marriage with that you had for years or decades before you ever even met your new spouse, is still considered a marital asset subject to division. Or if you build it during your marriage, it's considered also a marital asset subject to division, unless you have a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement or some kind of protective mechanism to segregate it or to divide, you know, to ascertain how you're going to divide the asset in the event that the marriage doesn't last. And just because it is a marital asset subject to division doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be divided up. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that you're going to lose it, but it means that
Right.
it is vulnerable because it is a marital asset.
What that's very interesting about when you enter a marriage. It used to be, I thought the sort of like the 10-year rule where it was 10 years now. Everything's looked at, even if your marriage is only a year or 2 years, in terms of assets, even going into the marriage. That's really interesting how that's happened, and obviously will affect situations how you do the planning too of the
Yes.
estates.
Yes. And, you know, the court will look at certain factors. So in Massachusetts, we have Chapter 208, Section 34, and it identifies various factors, some that are discretionary with the judge and some that are mandatory and are required by the judge to consider very significantly. One of those is, as you mentioned, the length of the marriage. So our marital rights as spouses accrue and grow the longer the marriage lasts. And so your
Right.
right to the other side's assets also grows and accrues the longer you're in the marriage. The concept behind this is that in marriage, we divide and conquer, we work together, we build a tapestry, an enterprise, a marital enterprise of cooperation and work together. One person may work at the business, but the other might raise the children or make the home wonderful, or just look after other aspects of the marriage and the family, taking care of real estate, taking care of family members, whatever it is. But there's always a marital weaving of contributions and actions together, sweat equity and capital funding, and contribution, capital contribution too. And it's that blend, it's that enterprise that creates that accrual of rights. And so
Right.
even if a business is held separate from the marriage and only one spouse owns it in name and only one spouse works there, it still could potentially be divided to some extent in a divorce.
You know, I think great answers. And, you know, it sounds like you're very much dominated by the concept of fairness. And I like the concept of fairness. I've talked to many parents, and I go, I really don't want to talk about equal. I want to talk about fairness. And,
Right.
you know, a lot of times people get equal mixed up with fairness. But one of the things in your bio I'd like you to address that no one's ever addressed on this show is this concept in your bio of financial exploitation, because I think that that is also extraordinarily common in today's world, where people have been in control of their businesses, of their finances. And I'm not speaking about any specific gender. You can be of either gender. And when it gets time to sort of look at things, there is a lack of information and there's a form of exploitation. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that without predetermining what you're going to say.
Yes, thank you for asking that question. It's so critically important. It's critically important because look at the number of baby boomers right now. It's the baby boomers who own the wealth, who own the businesses, and who are most subject to potential financial exploitation. I have lots of clients who come to me, especially those who don't have children, don't have spouses, and they ask me to serve as trustee. And my clients literally say to me, I'm afraid that as I age, someone's going to take advantage of me. Somebody's going to get me to sign something, and I'm going to be signing something over, and I'm afraid. I have other clients who come to me because they say my scoundrel son or my scoundrel daughter, you know, is trying to take over, and I'm not ready for that. I don't want that yet. But sure, I've got some memory failure, but I'm still able to do what I'm doing, you know.
Right.
Or sure, I have some medical concerns, but I'm able to run the business, and it creates great strife. The other thing that happens is that the next generation, typically very often also baby boomers, but the next generation down, is looking to control the family assets, looking to make sure that their what they believe is their right to a future inheritance is preserved, and that they have a say in what's going to happen with the business. And so siblings, adult siblings, sometimes compete for control and affection of the matriarch or patriarch of the business. And this turns into a potential financial exploitation or an undue influence where one sibling will insinuate themselves into the affair of the parent, or will sway affections and aim to have a better disposition of assets or control of the family business. And that turns into an undue influence financial exploitation situation. But I think the one that is the most alarming to families is when you have a matriarch or patriarch who is aging, who's experiencing mild diminishment of capacity. They're doing okay,
Right.
they're running the business, but ever so slight memory loss, ever so slight slowing down, just a gentle slowing, which is a beginning of diminished capacity. And they meet somebody, they're single, they meet somebody, they fall in love, they're ready to start a new chapter. These are individuals who worked very hard. They've raised their first family. They now want to relax. They're thinking perhaps of slowing it down, thinking about their retirement in the future, where they want to be, what they want to be doing. And they meet somebody special. And at that point, the children from a prior marriage get very anxious. What's going to happen to mom's business? What's going to happen to dad's business? What's happening to the family assets? Is it going to get transferred? Or will this newcomer to the family, who seems to be making dad or mom happy, is that person really out for their own gain? And will their family start to benefit from these assets to the exclusion of ours? Will the assets slip sideways? And that turns into very often litigation or controversy between a new romantic interest and children from a prior marriage.
Right. Lisa, to follow up, when that's going on, or to prevent that from going on with the families, do you find that you have prenuptial agreements that take care of this going in, or postnuptial agreements that you put together that maybe can deal with these situations before they erupt?
That's a great solution. So a prenuptial agreement, which is a agreement that's signed before you marry, that divides up assets in the event of marriage, is certainly one great way to protect against it, unless there's a later claim that the person who signed lacked capacity to meaningfully sign it. A postnuptial, same thing. A postnuptial, however, is a document that's signed after the marriage. But what happens when an individual is in a relationship that's non-marital, and there are transfers and gifts and sort of a disposition of assets, or extensive gifting that becomes alarming to family members, and there is no marriage? That can be just as challenging.
I have to, it's clearly a topic we have to have you back on again, because we're basically just starting to open up the can of worms, all very complicated. And Lisa, as you know, and I see every day, just to spend your whole life trying to take care of a family, to love a family, to then see such strife, anxiety, unhappiness, and sometimes after the death of a family member, permanent unhappiness and anxiety around a family needs to be dealt with now, while people do have their capacities. As someone's looking for you, and I already gave you my major endorsement before we started, how do they find you at Rubin and Rudman?
Thank you. So I can be reached always at my phone number, 617-966-9582. I can also be reached by email at Rubin and Rudman, which is LCUKIER at RUBINRUDMAN.com. And anyone can find me on LinkedIn. So that's the easy way to do it. Just grab me on LinkedIn.
You're everywhere. Marc Z, can you give us quick your contact information?
First of all, go on the wonderful Radio Entrepreneurs website, marczlegal.com, MARCZLEGAL.com, or Google Marc Z, MARC, and the letter Z, or 617-338-1300.
And remind everybody, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.